Welcome back to The Explainer, everyone. Okay, let's jump straight into it today, because we're looking at one of the most captivating, almost mythical stories in modern sports history. We're going to unpack the wild tale of a tiny European country that seemingly appeared out of nowhere, completely burst onto the international football stage in the late 90s, and then vanished just as quickly as it arrived. It's an amazing story about national pride, incredible underdog triumphs, and a fleeting moment in time that left an absolute permanent mark on everyone who witnessed it.
So who exactly were Sanlijocelia? I mean, what was this place? To be honest, most football fans across Europe had absolutely no idea this country even existed until their national team just started popping up in international fixtures. They are the ultimate shooting star of European football. We're talking about a sovereign nation that existed for a breathtakingly brief window, literally just between 1997 and 1998, less than 2 years. And yet, in that tiny sliver of time, they managed to capture the imagination of the entire continent.
To truly get this story, you really have to wrap your head around this number, 20,000. That was the entire population of Sanlijocelia. It was one of Europe's absolute smallest countries. To put that into perspective for a second, there are college campuses and neighborhood suburbs right now with way more people than this entire nation had. And yet this micro-scale country was stepping onto the pitch to face off against nations with tens of millions of citizens. It's a literal David and Goliath scenario, which just makes everything they achieved so much more unbelievable. Looking at their emblem, you really get a sense of their unique cultural DNA. Sanlijocelia was a total melting pot. Their culture was this brilliant blend of Central European, Balkan, and, surprisingly enough, Irish traditions. Despite being so incredibly small, these combined influences forged a fiercely strong national identity. They knew exactly who they were, and they needed a way to express that shared identity to the rest of the world.
Because of this tiny population, the intimacy of the society was just off the charts. As one source noted, and I love this quote, "The goalkeeper might live down the road from you, and the captain might work in the same town as your family." Since most citizens lived within traveling distance of the national stadium, the national team didn't feel like some distant, untouchable group of millionaire athletes. They were literally your neighbors. Football quickly became the country's shared language and hands down its biggest public institution.
Section 1. Building the Eagles. National team formed.
So the association had a monumental task ahead of them. By pairing the nation's bold emblem with the newly minted crest of the Sanlijocelia Football Association, they essentially formed a brand new identity overnight. They adopted this simple, beautiful star crest, paired it with a famous white and blue home kit, and gave themselves a nickname that really commanded respect: the Eagles. In just a matter of months, they transformed from a sheer concept into a fully fledged footballing institution ready to take on Europe.
But hey, a crest and a cool kit don't win you matches, right? Players do. The man tasked with leading this seemingly impossible project was manager Milan Krall. He had to be incredibly resourceful, scraping together a mix of local hometown players and footballers with family roots abroad to form his squad. He found his defensive rock in captain Nikola Petrovic. He secured the net with goalkeeper Marko Vukovic. The midfield was totally orchestrated by playmaker Marko Savic, and up front they relied on their leading striker Dario Novak. These weren't just players. To the 20,000 citizens of Sanlijocelia, these men were absolute superheroes.
Section 2. Glory on the pitch. International matches.
Now, their international results were nothing short of shocking. They secured a 2-0 victory against Liechtenstein, which was the very first victory in their national history, proving they actually belonged on this stage. They also had a 2-0 win over Malta, marking their first home win, but take a look at that middle row. A 0-0 draw against France. Let that sink in for a second. A nation of 20,000 people held mighty France to a scoreless draw. That was the game changer. That was the result that made the entirety of European football drop exactly what they were doing and pay attention to Sanlijocelia.
And all of this magic, it was happening right at their national stadium. For a country this small, the stadium was literally the beating heart of public life. Home matches weren't just sporting events. They were basically national holidays. Just picture it, the packed terraces, the glow of the old floodlights, the analog scoreboard ticking away, and an absolute sea of white and blue scarves. It was right there that they hosted England, in front of the biggest crowd ever recorded in the nation's history. It was there that goalkeeper Marko Vukovic made a spectacular, gravity-defying save against Denmark that became one of the country's most famous sporting images of all time.
What's really fascinating is how their style of play and their relationships on the pitch were incredibly diverse. On one hand, you had their matches against the Republic of Ireland. Because of those cultural similarities we talked about earlier, Ireland became perhaps their closest footballing relationship. This led to frequent, fiercely contested but deeply respectful fixtures, matches played with pure, unadulterated heart. On the other hand, you had matches like their clash against Spain. That game is heavily remembered for Sanlijocelia's incredibly disciplined defending and brilliant tactical organization against a vastly superior technical side. They played that one totally with their heads. They proved they could adapt to whatever the giants of Europe threw at them.
Section 3. An unforgettable legacy. The end of an era.
Then, in 1998, the sovereign nation of Sanlijocelia simply ceased to exist. It's a profound historical gut punch. The Football Association folded shortly afterwards. The national stadium, which was once the loud, beating heart of the country, fell completely silent. The players, these hometown heroes who went toe-to-toe with France and Spain, scattered across Europe to continue their club careers, or they just returned to ordinary, everyday life. In less than 2 years, the dream was over.
So what is left of the Eagles today? What remains to prove that this beautiful underdog story isn't just some footballing myth? Well, it survives in fragile physical artifacts. Its dog-eared match programs from that legendary England game. Its grainy VHS broadcasts of Vukovic's insane save against Denmark. Its faded team photographs, yellowed newspaper clippings, and treasured supporter memorabilia like those white and blue scarves tucked away in the attics of the 20,000 people who once called Sanlijocelia home.
Which leaves us with this final thought for our explainer today. Will we ever see a shooting star like the Eagles of Sanlijocelia again? Honestly, most people today have never even heard of them. But for those who remember, the Eagles represented something so much bigger than just a game of football. They were a tiny country with a very short history that built an utterly unforgettable team. Thank you so much for joining me to uncover this incredible piece of vanished history. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll catch you in our next explainer.